This meeting is now being recorded. We will go ahead and start with the call to order and roll call. Is Erin Biancourt here today? Not seeing her yet. Donna Brand, I saw you come on camera. Good morning.
Good morning.
Kelly Evans, I think I saw Kelly join before. And I see he's still in the meeting, so I'm gonna say he's here. Luciana.
Hello, I'm here.
All right, good morning. Jeremy Gibbons, I think I saw him join.
I'm present.
Good morning. Martin Herbst.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Chris Hill.
I'm here.
Good morning.
Morning.
Trina. I am not seeing Trina yet. Natalie.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Sabrina, I saw you on my screen. Keith Rains, I see you on my screen also. Mike Ritchie is out today. Is David here? I'm not seeing him in my list yet. I think I saw Marissa join. Yes. And I see Linda on the top of my screen right now. Jessica Thomas. No Jessica yet. Amanda Thorpe.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Monica Whitaker. I see Monica on the bottom of my screen. Okay, I think that is who we have for right now. First up on the agenda, then we have minutes review and approval. And we sent the minutes out on Friday. Did anyone have any corrections or questions about the minutes? I am not seeing any. Okay, we will go ahead and approve those and get them posted. We are moving right along for this meeting. We have work group updates, and we did send out the draft healthcare coverage and childcare costs work group minutes with the materials. So that had a little bit more detail, but we have that up first on the list.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So a little update on, or from the healthcare coverage and childcare cost work group. We met last week, had a really robust conversation. Our approach to just overall kind of narrowing things down and going over everything has been to start with the 4 recommendations that, or options that have been identified in the policy paper. And we've slowly started crossing them out or making decisions on what the consensus is overall in terms of recommendations for this group. A little preview on what you'll see most likely from us is that we've decided to not keep, obviously, status quo. That was option number 1. We've also agreed to move forward with removing the private healthcare coverage priority. So we'll probably have that as one of our recommendations. And then we had a pretty robust discussion around option number 3, which was to include dental, vision, prescription drug, and mental health in the medical support guideline. And we kind of landed on, I think there's a little more research to be done, but again, like as a preview, I think we agreed to look at expanding the commentary to clarify that dental, vision, and prescription drugs and mental health coverages were not going to be ordered as standalone items. because they're already encompassed by the overarching healthcare coverage overall. But when parents do provide additional coverage, that we would be allowing that credit when support is calculated. So that's one of the bigger, I think, decisions or consensus. The second one that we kind of made, and then we had additional conversation about changing the 4% cap and specifically considering it per parent rather than combined. And I think that we still have some research to do and to kind of look at some numbers from the Oregon Health Authority and OHP data before we can before we're comfortable making a recommendation. But we plan on tackling this discussion, and then the topic that Judge Raines had suggested, I think in our prior discussion about the high deductible insurance that's coupled with health savings accounts. So we're going to tackle that topic probably in our May meeting, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to report more on what we've done and kind of what discussions we've had on that at that point.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks.
Did anyone have any questions or comments about that report? All right, it sounds like you guys have been making good progress. Next up, we have the income work group.
Hey, everybody. So the income work group did not meet until this week, just based on the days in April. So we just met on Monday, and I don't have minutes ready for you all, but we're working on that, and they'll come out with the next meeting. So the work group focused on what income to use for a parent who's receiving TANF. Right now, the rule requires people using the calculator to enter full-time minimum wage, the lowest minimum wage in a state where a parent lives, when we're calculating support for a parent who's receiving TANF. And I think there was general consensus from the group through discussion that we didn't like that, or most folks didn't like that, but it was pointed out that we really needed to consider what we'd use instead. You can't just say we don't like it, we have to have a solution. So we talked through a bunch of different options this month, and didn't settle on one that we're ready to recommend. There was a desire for more calculations, especially calculations using the new scale. And so Krista was able to provide me with a version of the calculator that has the new scale behind it. And I've got an action item for our work group. When I send out minutes, I'm also going to have more examples for people to consider. So we're going to come back to that next meeting with that information and try to settle on how we want to approach it. We did also identify some maybe underlying principles and questions that we wanted to answer for ourselves to help narrow this down. So when we were thinking about income for a parent who's receiving TANF, we wanted to ask ourselves whether the existing rule is okay and we just need to be less rigid, or if we wanted to both change it and potentially make it less rigid. That was some of the feedback, was it just is unfortunate when you have competing information to be stuck with something that's an absolute requirement. We also talked through whether we still agreed with the commentary that's in the rule right now that says you have to impute some income to a parent on TANF so that there's cost sharing between the parents. And I think that there was a general consensus that we do still believe that's true. It's just a matter of what number is the right number. We also wanted to talk through amongst ourselves whether needs-based assistance or means-tested assistance, there's a different way that people talk about it, but any kind of assistance a person gets because they don't have enough income to support themselves, should that even be considered at all? And right now the rule does not have an exhaustive list, and that kind of implies that only the ones in the rule should be excluded from income, and we want to look at the whole rule to get more consistency and to nail that down. So those are all still open questions that we're working through, and we hope to come back in May with some more concrete ideas that we might be able to bring to this group. Beyond that, we still have to talk about what income to use for a parent when we don't have enough information to to determine actual or potential income. We still need to talk about minimum orders, and we still need to talk about self-support reserves. So we're a long ways away from the end, but we are, I think, going to pick up speed as we make some decisions, because I think we'll have more and more ideas of kind of what our underlying assumptions are. So does anyone else in the work group want to add anything?
I'm not seeing any hands. Okay, thank you for that report. I think we kind of knew up front that group had probably the biggest lift, or a heavy lift on things at least. All right, next up we have the parenting time credit.
Hi, everyone. So we just met yesterday and we went through all of the identified issues and came to agreements on what the recommendations were going to be. At this point, we're just working on rule language. So we've actually decided to not continue. We're going to leave our meetings as scheduled, but cancel them unless we need them, and just finish up some rule review through emails. There is one outstanding piece that we thought maybe would be more appropriate to discuss with this big group, because it doesn't just affect parenting time, but it affects the overall calculation, and that's regarding whether you apply parenting time whether you apply the minimum order when there's parenting time. And that was one of the recommendations in the study that said that they didn't think that anytime you had parenting time that you should use the minimum order. And because it's not, I mean, it is a parenting time issue, but it crosses over several of the issues. So we thought maybe that would be a good discussion for the whole group. Is there anyone else from the parenting time group that wants to flesh out anything that I didn't?
So on that, Lori, then do you think that would be something for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Since we didn't have it as in a specific agenda item for today.
Yeah, because we just talked about it yesterday, so there wasn't time.
Perfect. Jeremy?
I agree. We should not apply the minimum order where there's shared parenting time. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith?
I still haven't abandoned my concern that we have these disparate incomes, and one parent is desperately poor and having very little support or no support essentially for the child in their household. So I haven't abandoned it yet, but I gather it doesn't have much legs.
Thank you. I think we talked through that last time and sort of got to, I don't have the minutes in front of me right now, but more of potentially a rebuttal, if I'm remembering correctly. Linda?
I thought where it was left was that there was some interest in looking into why the charts come out so unfairly for that big income gap situation. That was the suggestion, I think, from Jeremy, that we look at the core of it is, if that's coming up with consistently unfair or seemingly unfair results. So I'd like to keep that going.
Okay. Lucci?
I'm game to help with that, but I would really like to have some concrete numbers of what our examples of unfair are, because I feel like that's pretty subjective. And I think you guys, it sounds like, have experienced that and might be able to give us some nice visceral examples that would help. Because when we say unfair, I question whether we're talking about the scale or the calculation or kind of where that unfair is. Because in theory, the scale is telling us this is how much this couple should be providing for their children. And if we think that's wrong, maybe it's a different solution than if we're saying the parenting time credit's wrong or some other component. So I would love to have some examples.
Thank you. Jeremy?
I also agree that some actual numeric work on that would be helpful as well well. And I think there is also like a normative values-based discussion around that too. To a certain degree, there's a question of, well, this is an income transfer from one household to another. What income transfer is the one that we think is right and why? But I do want to point out that we do have some examples that the Judge Rains provided, and I think they went out with the February 14th agenda. So maybe those might make a good starting point. But yeah, I agree. Some numerical examples to look at, and maybe some discussion of where it's wrong and why we think it's wrong, so we can trace that back to where it comes from in the first place. Thank you.
And on that, do we, Lori, I think you reported that Krista gave, we've got the calculator with the new scale on it.
It was me.
Oh, sorry.
Krista sent me an Excel document, and I haven't actually played with it yet, but I believe it has the new scale behind it.
Okay. So that might be helpful to look at in that situation to see if any of those issues have already been addressed a little bit in it. So if we're playing with that a little bit, we might be able to do that at the next meeting or in the income group first, if that makes sense. Keith?
So Lori, if you could particularly focus on a 50-50 share of parenting time, because that's where so many courts are moving to. And the disparity of income was like 130 and versus 35% or $35,000, 135,000 and 35,000 is just kind of a place to start for the new scale. Thanks.
And just as we're doing that, and I think it sounds like we're going to talk about it in our next meeting maybe, but from folks wanting to explore this change, just maybe explaining what is unfair. Is it that the children's needs aren't being met, or there's something different that's unfair? And we can wait till next meeting, but just to really try to spell that out, because I think that's what I'm struggling with.
Keith?
Well, the problem is that the guidelines say this is the right number, and for the court to say then, oh, well, I'm going to do a deviation because it's not the right number. You're supposed to find something really, really outlandish, something really expensive, something really different. When the reality is, if you're getting $100 a month as child support on a 50-50 share, and you've got, 1/3 of the income of the other person, is that fair to the child? But my problem is just putting as a deviation. The court has to find some really substantial reason to deviate, and if the guidelines say, well, this is the right number, then the court's just going to go with it.
Okay. Aaron, I saw that you did join us, so welcome. Amanda, I see your hand up.
Good morning. I'd be happy to tackle some different scenarios that are the more common ones I see. I understand Judge Rain's point about 50-50. I think that perhaps the counties that I'm practicing in just aren't moving there as fast. I don't see a lot of standard anymore, but I do see a lot of 70-30, 60-40, and I don't tend to see as high of incomes in the more rural areas that I'm looking at and serving in Southern Oregon. I mean, 60,000 would be an amazing salary for dad and mom's at minimum or nothing. So if it would help, I could run what are some, like I do a quote unquote standard at the 25 or 30, do a 70-30, a 60-40 with some different income variables on, again, kind of different than I think what Judge Rains has pointed out, maybe not as extreme, but kind of on the lower end, if those would be helpful. I'd take that on for the next meeting.
Thank you. I think that would be helpful to look at the different combinations. All right, I'm not seeing hands on that.
Does Amanda have the new scale?
I don't think anyone does yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's okay to share that with me, and understanding that it's strictly confidential for our purposes, I would love to run those on the new scale.
Yeah, I think for this group, I mean, it's a draft, but I think, Luciana, were you gonna try and play with it a little bit first before you shared it?
I haven't looked at it yet, so yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I would. It doesn't. Is Krista not here today?
She's out.
Okay. I mean, I would want to check with her and find out kind of what her perspective is, because I don't know what's behind it or where the stuff lives. You know, like if it's got links in it that we'd need to make sure that that
Would be
users outside the
accessible.
program. Yeah.
Okay, we will follow up on that. Krista was out on a planned day today, but her availability may be a little limited for right now, but we can check and see what happened there. Okay. Did we have any more comments on that for right now? No. Okay. So I think we've got a couple of topics identified for next time. The parenting time group will have some things for us to look at, and then it sounds like hopefully we could do some calculations. Well, are you going to do them in the work group first?
So the income work group is going to be working on calculations about a parent receiving TANF, but if this group is talking about the parenting time question, I could maybe work on preparing some. I think it's really hard to look at calculations together personally, but maybe what we can do, what I did for the other work group was just laid out examples with final dollar amounts, and maybe we could do something like that for this one. Maybe a little bit more like the example that Keith had in that sent around, just like we use these factors and these were the outcomes, rather than doing like 10 pages about calculation.
Okay. I'll get to my chat right now to see what that was. Oh, was your question on the calculator, Keith? I think that what they meant is, does it have a link that is something that's only internally? So if we send it out, the link isn't going to work. Yeah, that was the point there of making sure that we don't send it out and it's like, oh, that you can't use it because it doesn't work in that way. And we were hopeful on some things that if we tried to do them in the Teams channel, it might address some of those things, but we'll just have to do a little testing on it that way. And I don't know how much validation has been done with what Krista did, so we'd want to do a little bit internal before we sent it out to find out if it was like, oop, there is still something here that wasn't factored in. Okay, so in addition to those two topics, either from a work group or anything else that may have been, thank you for the follow-up there, Michelle. Any other specific topics that you would like to talk about at the May meeting? That probably is sufficient, I think, for our time at that meeting. So we can plan on that, and then obviously we'll have the updates from the work groups as well. As you noticed, I shortened this meeting. We were trying to decide if we were going to have it or cancel it since we didn't have specific things, but we thought it was a good idea to just keep it here and do it as a briefer meeting. So we are at the roundtable part of the agenda. Did anybody have anything for roundtable? I am not seeing any. Okay, so at the May meeting, I think we will have more to talk about and anticipate a longer meeting for that one. Thanks everyone for your time, and we'll see you soon.